series from 2 Timothy 4 and 7. We talked about how Paul said he fought a good fight, and we talked about fighting a good fight, what that means. We realized that we as saints don't really know how to fight. What we think of fighting and what God calls fighting is two different things. And then we looked at how he said he finished his course. Last week we talked about what it means to finish a course. This week we're going to look at the last phrase where he says, I have kept the faith. I have kept the faith. And when I began to meditate on that, and I was going to talk about faith and the scriptures and what faith is and how we can exercise our faith. And God had me zero in on the fact that Paul says, I have kept the faith. And he zeroed me in on the word kept, which is the past tense of keep. And in the original language, we've talked about this before, in the original language, the word keep means to uphold the integrity of. To uphold the integrity of. And as I meditated on that, God took me to we're going to talk about two broad things for just a few moments about upholding the integrity of something. And the first thing we're going to look at, in order to uphold the integrity of something, you have to invest yourself in what it is you're trying to keep. The word teaches us, God says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And we quote that scripture, and a lot of times I wonder sometimes if people know what God is saying to them. What does God mean to keep his commandment? How is it to uphold the integrity of the commandments of God? And that's simple. If you're going to uphold the integrity of the commandments, then you have taken the responsibility and the accountability to prove that the commandments are just what God said. They are right, they are true, there is power. And so if Paul has taken the initiative and has taken the responsibility to uphold the integrity of his faith, what Paul is saying is, regardless of what I had to go through, and we know he went through much, but regardless of what I had to go through, I upheld the integrity. I kept going regardless. Why? Because I know what God said. That's interesting. And that's key. How much of what God has actually said can we truly say we uphold the integrity of it? We hear what God said, and one thing about God, he makes things very plain. There ain't no real guesswork. We try to act like we don't know, but we know. We know. And it's those little quirks in our character, those little character flaws that many times interfere with the integrity of what God is trying to do. Come on, somebody. Paul went through a lot, but he invested himself in what he went through. He believed God enough that he invested himself in what he went through. So therefore, when the challenges came, Paul understood these challenges are part of the process. These challenges are what I got to face if I'm going to uphold what God says. The scripture tells us not to count it strange when fiery dots come against us, yet we do. We get all tore up. Our nerves get all tore to pieces. And what is happening is we don't want to invest ourselves in the visions that God has given us. We want God to make it as easy for us as possible. We don't want to invest ourselves in it. And if we don't invest ourselves in it, we can't uphold the integrity of it. We just can't. It won't mean as much to you. Yeah. This is why people can take an office in the church or take a job and then commit crimes. Why? Because they didn't invest themselves in it. They took it, but they didn't take the responsibility. So therefore, when things got tough, they did what they had to do to pacify themselves, to find their version of peace. They didn't invest themselves in it. So anything God gives us if we're going to keep the faith of it, if we're going to uphold the integrity of it, then we got to learn how to invest ourselves in it. That's the only way we can count it all joy. When we fall into diverse temptation, that's the word too. It seems strange for the word to tell us to count something joy when we finding it hard. Celebrate it. Rejoice over it. Come on, somebody. That sounds strange. That sounds like what do they call it? An oxymoron. I'm in pain. For everything I look at, it looks like this ain't working, and this is working against me. The only thing I got going for me is I heard from God, and this is the way He told me to take. Come on, somebody. And yet, I'm expecting, because it's God, it's supposed to be easy. And it's not easy. I got to do some work. And it's more work than really that I had signed up for. Come on, somebody. It's at those moments when your integrity has to kick in. Come on now. It's in those moments when your integrity got to take you through. And if you lose your integrity, then you can't uphold what God has told you to do. You're going to falter. You're going to falter. What God has told you to do is going to become hard. Come on up in here, somebody. It's going to get hard now. Now you're going to try to find a way to do it where you can think you're doing what God said and not really do what God said. But you got to learn how to uphold the integrity of God if you're going to keep the faith. If you're going to keep anything. If you're going to keep God's commandment, you got to understand how to invest yourself in it. We don't mind making investments of ourselves when we think we can calculate it and see how this is going to work. It's when we make those investments and it started costing us. Come on up in here, somebody. Amen. That we start faltering. And when you start faltering, understand something. You're no longer keeping. If you start faltering and you start complaining, then you are not keeping, you're not upholding the integrity. You're picturing it and you're making it look like to the world it's hard to live like this. Come on now. God can't get glory from that. The world needs to see you go through and keep your integrity, keep your joy, keep your peace. Hold your head up. Yeah, I'm going through, but God is going to do something. God getting ready to bust a move. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know He getting ready to bust a move up in here because I'm going through. But I know one thing. I have kept the faith. Amen. I heard what He said. Yeah. He told me to start this business. So if it ain't moving like I want it to move right now, then the only thing I know is, God, you got to tell me something else because I won't quit until you tell me something else. I won't move until I'm going to uphold the integrity of what I heard you say. If God told you to go back to school or go to school and you're looking at it and you say, you know what, God, these grades ain't going to get me where I need to go. But if you know you heard from God, then what you need to do is say, God, show me how to study. God, do something for me. See, now this is where faith comes in. See, we waste faith. We waste our faith. We wait till something major starts happening and then we want to holler and call God. If we would just go ahead and call Him from the beginning and keep Him in the loop, come on up in here, somebody, then things wouldn't be as hard for us. And we can actually ask God to do some things for us. Listen, it would mean more to God. I believe. This is just, you ain't got to say this is scripture. This is just my little personal opinion, so you can put it down. But I believe it would mean more to God if we would come to Him before disaster happened and ask Him to pull us out. If we would face ourselves and say, God, this is my issue. I got some issues, God, here they go. I even went to the trouble, God, of writing them down so I wouldn't miss a whole lot of them. God, I need faith right now to transform me, make me over again. Because, God, I'm going to get in the way. I know me. Come on up in here. So we don't talk to God like that. We wait until we get in the way. and the disaster comes, and then we try to figure out how to blame something else on the disaster other than the fact we didn't do it like God said. Come on up in here, somebody. I said there were two. We talked about if you're going to uphold the integrity of something, if you're going to keep the faith of something, you have to invest yourself in it. The second thing is you got to develop a passion for it. You will never uphold the integrity of something you don't care about. You got to develop a passion for it. You got to love it enough you want to know all about it. I don't mean no harm, and I'm not being judgmental. But I don't get people who take positions in church and don't search the scripture to find out what it is they're supposed to have. How are you going to call yourself elder anything? I'll talk about me so people won't get insulted. How am I going to call myself Elder Vincent and they call on me and I lay my hands and nothing happens? Come on up in here, somebody. I need to go back. I need to go back. I need to have enough passion for being Elder Vincent that I want to know what that is. I got to uphold the integrity of the eldership. Come on up in here, somebody. And so therefore, if I'm going to be an elder in the Lord's church, I need to know what an elder does. I need to not only invest myself in being an elder, I need to develop a passion for being an elder. I need to be there when it's time for the elders to show up. Come on up in here, somebody. Listen, the scripture says that the reason, if you go back and you read about, this just came to me, if you go to the scriptures and you read about when David sinned with Bathsheba, the first thing you see is it was a time of war and all the kings were out fighting. At the very least checking on their troops. David at the house chilling. Wasn't even in the position that he was supposed to be in. He's somewhere laying on the bed just chilling. Got bored. Went out on the porch and there it was. Waiting for him. How much do you miss in a day, in a year, in weeks? Just chilling. No, you're supposed to be investing your time. No, you're supposed to be investing your money. No, you're supposed to be paying this more attention than what you're paying it. But you just chilling. Come on up in here, somebody. There's no need to wonder why things are not working. You are not upholding the faith. Come on now. If God called you to do something, what do you know about that calling? If God has given you a charge, how much do you know about that charge? That's the question you need to be asking yourself. As we close, if you're going to keep the faith, you must learn how to uphold the integrity of what God has said do. How do you do that? First, what did we say? You invest yourself in it. Nothing, no price is too high. That's what you got to start telling yourself about what God has called you to do. No price is too high. And I'm not necessarily talking about dollars and cents. I'm talking about you may have to invest yourself to the point you got to reinvent yourself. You might have to forget about some of the stuff you think is right now and invest and embrace what God's saying is right. And secondly, you got to find a passion for it. You got to care about it. You got to want it to happen more than anything. God bless you, and we will see you next week.